The House Public Works Committee has for years been working hard to make our highway system safe for all Americans. You are about to see some of the important progress we have made and get a better appreciation for the problems that lie ahead. As chairman, I am very proud of this film and of the subcommittee on investigations and review which produced it. I am especially proud of its chairman, Congressman Jim Wright of Texas, whom I have asked to continue the work which this subcommittee started about 14 years ago. Congressman Jim Wright.
The film you're about to see lasts 28 minutes. It could save your life. This is a highway, an American highway. It begins just about any place you happen to be, and it will take you almost any place you want to go, to work, or to school, for shopping, or for pleasure. Our highways are used by more Americans more often than any other public service that society provides. They are an indispensable part of our American way of life. They also make a gruesome contribution to our American way of death. This is an Air Force base from which the sophisticated supersonic aircraft of our Strategic Air Command fly daily missions. The average American might think of this activity as dangerous. But at the exit from this military base appears this conspicuous sign as a reminder to all who leave its relative safety for a trip on a public highway. This report is based on a continuing survey which a special subcommittee of the United States House of Representatives has been conducting for the past 12 years. It was called the Blotnick Committee until its first chairman, Congressman John Blotnick of Minnesota, became chairman of the full Public Works Committee of the House. Chairman Blotnick's quiet conferences with various members do much to supplement the energetic questioning of knowledgeable witnesses in the continuing effort to assure that America's highways are developed to the maximum safety and convenience of the American people. There are almost 4 million miles of highways and streets in America today, enough to circle the world 160 times. In highway construction, we take a back seat to no one. Our country has the best developed road system in the world, but we do have a problem. As rapidly as the nation has been building and improving its road system, the number of cars has grown even faster. There are half again as many more vehicles on America's streets and highways today than just 15 years ago. With more than 100 million automobiles in the nation right now, and millions more being added every year, we're having a little trouble finding places to accommodate them all in safety. And many highways, fully adequate when they were built, are simply overrun by the ever-increasing volume that they're now forced to carry. And this, in part, explains why many more Americans are killed while going to the store than in going to war. In terms of violent death, the traffic collision is the greatest single killer of the American people. And viewed in that context, it becomes our greatest problem. In the past 25 years, an entire generation, for every American killed in war, 10 have lost their lives on the highways of this nation. Congress was thinking basically of this when it created the interstate highway system. On balance, the interstate system has been a spectacular success. It is the most extensive and the most expensive public works undertaking ever attempted by any nation in the history of the human race. When completed, it will have cost some $76 billion. But already it has added many times that amount to our economy. It has stimulated some $550 billion of private investment in new business enterprises and the creation of new jobs along the route of the interstate. Every $6,000 invested in building the highway has generated a permanent job in the private economy for somebody. Most important of all, it has saved lives. The death toll on the interstate, measured by each million passenger miles traveled, is only about half what it is on the rest of the road and street network. While building the interstate systems, we've been upgrading the regular primary and secondary systems of the country. City streets, urban expressways, intercity highways, and paved rural roads. But what we have done is not nearly good enough. The simple fact is this: neither the Congress, nor the road builders, nor the car manufacturers, nor you and I, the drivers, have as yet come up with accident-free driving. One driver in every 5 will have an automobile accident of some kind this year. During our congressional hearings on highway safety in 1972, someone installed this clock in the committee room as a grim reminder of how many Americans would lose their lives while we studied and debated the problem. Although improved roads have cut the death rate in ratio to the number of miles we travel, we're still suffering highway deaths at the average rate of 55,000 per year. If you can live with that figure, if it doesn't shock you, well, you really have no business on the highway. It shocks the Congress to realize how many Americans are being needlessly slaughtered. Since 1959, the Highway Investigating Subcommittee has been ceaselessly probing to learn the reasons why and to eradicate them. We are taking down the old signs and light posts mounted in concrete and steel, which killed too many wayward drivers. And we are replacing these with breakaway signs. If a sign or a light post is knocked down, well, just put it back up. Better to lose a sign and replace it than to lose a human life. Guardrails, once thoughtlessly mounted as poised lances, impaled too many vehicles. Now, these rails are being installed with their lead ends curved away from the traffic and buried. And a new system of curb design helps to guide the errant car back onto its highway lane, rather than letting it go off the bridge. These were among the first changes implemented by Congress, doing away with the obvious hazards. New highways now embody these improved design features. Unfortunately, not all the old booby traps have yet been corrected from existing highways, but little by little, even they are disappearing. Through all the subcommittee's investigations, government and industry have been encouraged to research the problem of highway accidents. The device being shown here is one used by NASA in its studies of tires and their behavior on water-covered pavement. Skidding is an insidious thing. It sneaks up on you. Suddenly you hit the brakes and you're out of control. Skidding, we found, is made possible by a number of things. In this case, the road design itself and the lack of adequately skid-resistant materials in the pavement. The driver of this station wagon is the mother of 8 children. Before she can get her car out of its predicament, another slides into it. Now watch this truck. Only by great good fortune was a serious accident avoided here. Since this particular stretch of road has been redesigned, the accidents have been dramatically reduced. Federal and state highway officials are trying to get an inventory of such danger spots all over the country so they too can be corrected. But unfortunately, no highway design can be made absolutely skid-proof. Accidents relate to 3 things: the road, the car, and the driver. Congress, the Federal Highway Administration, and the states are constantly working to improve the safety quality of the roads. As far as the car is concerned, Congress maintains constant restraint and pressure on the manufacturers to turn out safer products. Seat belts have been required. The quality of tires is being improved. Experiments are being conducted on shock-absorbent bumpers. Most states require periodic inspection of automobiles to see that brakes and other components are in working order. But just so many things can be done to improve the roads and the cars. Obviously, everything that can be done should be done. It must be done. But with the driver, it's another matter. We can do little more than encourage education and caution. Most of the pictures you're about to see represent accidents that occurred on good roads and in well-maintained automobiles. These pictures are not pretty. They're not pleasant. But they are real. They have been shown here to impress upon you one fact. Lurking in front of you every moment you're in a car is the possibility of death, or perhaps worse, lifelong pain and impairment. To help you survive in this real world of traffic environment, the committee has made a careful analysis of the most prevalent causes of accidents. We'd like to share this with you, together with a set of very simple guidelines which may save your life, or that of someone dear to you. First, a few words about that deadly combination, gasoline and alcohol. It seems trite to say again that nobody should drive while drinking. Everybody knows that. But too many Americans have translated that common sense injunction into a sort of weird and senseless parody. Others shouldn't drive while drinking. Of the 55,000 traffic deaths in this country last year, approximately 29,000 involved alcohol in some way. More than half of them. And the cruel injustice is that the drinker is not always the one who's killed. Is it worth it? The General Motors Company recently conducted some revealing experiments into the influence of alcohol upon the physical coordination, reflexes, and driving skills of a number of volunteers. In every case, the result was the same. The drivers were asked to negotiate a number of obstacle courses marked by rubber cones. Here's one driver negotiating the course when cold sober. Now here's the same driver after just 3 drinks. And here's another. The interesting thing is that each driver, after a few drinks, thought he was doing well. In fact, as the consumption of alcohol increased, so did the driver's confidence in his ability. They all thought they were doing fine. Do you think, perhaps, that you're an exception? So did they. In the scientific experiment, there were no exceptions. Next to alcohol, the second biggest contributing factor to fatal accidents is excessive speed. Frequently, the two exist in the same accident. In more than 1/3 of the highway deaths, one or more of the drivers involved was exceeding the posted speed limit. And as with alcohol, the same tragic inequity applies. It's often the innocent who are killed. As with alcohol, the speeding syndrome is usually founded upon an illusion of boundless overconfidence. You're well coordinated, quick, and alert, so why pay attention to speed limits? Well, let's consider something that has nothing at all to do with human reflexes. The limitations of the automobile. The braking and stopping distance of every automobile is directly related to the speed at which it's traveling. Repeated scientific tests have shown that it takes 120 feet to stop a car going 50 miles per hour. That's 40 yards. If the same car is going 70, it takes 270 feet, almost the length of a football field. And at 80 miles per hour, it takes 380 feet. Let's watch an illustration of something that frequently happens on the road. The car in which the cameraman's traveling is proceeding at an acceptable pace along a residential street. In this case, if he had been exceeding his present speed by just 5 miles per hour, there would have been a collision. And any faster than that, a serious accident. Perhaps an injury or a fatality. It wouldn't have had anything to do with the driver's reflexes. So the next time you're worrying about the effects of being just a few minutes late to your next destination, please think of one other thing. Think of the effect of your not getting there at all. Think of the effect upon your family, those who care something about you. Another common cause of accidents is related to speeding, but it's a different problem. And that's the problem of tailgating. Tailgating is highest on the list of accidents which result in automobile damage and bodily injury. There are more rear-end collisions than any other kind. There is a rule of thumb, which is observed by those who take safe driving seriously. For every 10 miles per hour of speed, leave room for at least one automobile between your vehicle and the car ahead of you. In other words, at 30 miles per hour, the safe distance is no less than 3 car lengths behind the automobile in front. At 40 miles per hour, at least 4 car lengths. At 50, at least 5 car lengths. On heavily congested commuter roads at certain times of day, with everyone fighting jealously for his place in line, unwilling to yield sufficient space, here is what very frequently happens. This headline tells of a multiple accident in Los Angeles a few months ago in which 70 cars were involved in a chain reaction of tailgating collisions. Tailgating must inevitably lead to a wreck. If it doesn't take your life, it can cost you a lot of money in automobile repairs and days you don't really want to spend in a hospital. There is another variation of tailgating which entirely too many drivers don't think about, but it gives severe headaches to the traffic accident experts. It's practiced this way. You're driving in the left lane and another car is ahead of you in the lane to the right, going at about the same speed. You position yourself in his blind spot, just to his left rear. He cannot see you in his rearview mirror. He doesn't know you're there. He may glance at his mirror, decide there's nobody there, and pull out ahead of you into your lane. The accident would be as much your fault as his. But we're not talking about accidents, faults. We're talking about life and safety. Almost every car has two blind spots where its driver cannot see what's approaching behind. These two blind spots are just to the rear on the left and just to the rear on the right. If you'd avoid accidents, stay out of them. Here the rule of thumb is a simple one. If you're in the left lane, just so long as you can see the back of the driver's head through the rear window of his car, he can see you in his rearview mirror. When you cannot see him, he cannot see you. But if you approach him from the right lane, he can see you only when you can see his rearview mirror. In this relationship, he cannot see you. Finally, a word should be... Excuse me, I was going to say a word about the horn. Traffic experts are generally agreed that one particular practice is especially characteristic of the unsafe driver. He uses his horn excessively. He tries to clear his path with it, thus removing the annoyance of slowing down, as though it were a substitute for his brakes. It isn't. He's sometimes at his obnoxious worst in moving traffic, where his instant clarion announces his disdain for the world. Impatience is his watchword. And as he acts, so others react. A view of the guardrail indicates some of the results of these collective attitudes. When you get right down to it, excessive use of the horn is the ultimate form of rudeness on the highway. Just one other thing, and it really shouldn't have to be said. Since driving is a matter of life and death, it deserves total concentration. The eye of the driver should be on the road, not on the scenery. His mind should be on the task to which others in the car have entrusted their lives to his performance, not on entertaining them with conversation. Recently, W.T. Shorty Smith of Waco, Texas, was honored by the American Trucking Association for having completed 4 million miles of accident-free driving. 43 years of professional driving, and not a single accident. Well, here's the way he puts it.
Well, driving is my business, of course, but in a sense, it's everybody's business. If I could boil it all down to 3 simple rules, I guess they'd go like this. First, try to drive with your full attention. Keep your whole mind on what you're doing. And the second, drive courteously. Be as nice to the other driver as you'd want him to be to you, even if they're not. The highway is no place for an argument or to teach people a lesson. Finally, drive defensively, as though you expect the other fellow to make a mistake. Often as not, he will. In those cases, it's up to you to save both his life and your own.
The road, the car, and the driver. These three. All three are involved in our effort to stop the senseless slaughter. By statistical probability, during the few minutes while you've been watching this film, somewhere in America, 2 people have been killed in automobile accidents, and perhaps 100 have been injured. We're killing each other at the rate of 55,000 a year, and leaving between 2 and 4 million people crippled as a result of highway accidents. And from a cold cash standpoint, auto accidents cost the American public almost twice as much every year as the total cost of building, maintaining, and improving our roads and streets. Together, we can reduce those figures dramatically. To accomplish that aim, we need to recognize that our highways, while the best and safest in the world, and even though in constant process of improvement, are not foolproof. In spite of all we can do, I guess they never will be. The American automobile, symbol of our affluence, our mobility, our freedom of movement, will never be made completely accident-proof. So it's up to you, the driver, to drive as though your life depended on it. As a matter of fact, it does.